Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Simon from Getting to Crypto, and I just wanted to give a bit of an update on the markets, take a quick look at the Bitcoin price, see what's going on, and basically share my views as to where we're going from here. So let's get straight into it. As we can see, Bitcoin still looking fairly weak, sort of hovering around 16,500. We did actually sort of come down. So just sort of flipping down to the daily here, did actually come down and sort of retest the current lows around about 15,500. We can kind of see that happen a couple of days ago, and now yesterday we started to pump up, and then today we've been on a little pump. So it feels like, look, where we are today, price can really go either way. I'm still kind of positioned for sort of more downside, but I'm also like prepared to say that the low potentially could be in. And in a moment, we'll actually look at something that has previously been a forward indicator for actually marking the bottom of the bear market, so or the end of the bear market. So we've got that to cover shortly. But all I will say, for me personally, it feels like a lot of people are starting to say that I'm not starting to say, a lot of people seem to be expecting lower prices. And I mean, even including myself, even I'm thinking, look, we really should be coming down and taking this sort of 13,600, 13,700 area. That's not to say that, of course, it has to happen. And the thing you realize when you have been trading for a long time, that in a lot of these situations or scenarios where the majority of participants in the market, like the vast majority of the participants in the market, if not everybody, seems to say that price is going to go one way, a lot of the time you'll see that this won't always play out how everybody expects it to. And I think the best example was probably last year when we were up at 69,000 and everyone was sort of screaming that we're going to 100,000. It was hard to find any bearish voices in the room. And if anybody did challenge that sort of bullish outlook, they were sort of heckled, they were called idiot and nobody, and they were made to feel stupid and very much embarrassed. And I do think we are seeing like the inverse of that happening right now. So even though this doesn't look like a massive, capitulation with a huge wick and a massive reversal, it doesn't look like something we'd typically see on a, being the end to a bear market. You've got to realize that, the people that are sort of pulling the strings and controlling these markets, they don't want it to make it seem obvious that we are actually at a bottom when the bottom is in. So if we just kind of flip back to the weekly and actually sort of look at the sort of bear market low from 2018, we can actually see that we don't have any sort of massive weekly wicks. We pretty much closed. We then rallied up. Around here, everybody was saying, well, if we can't hold above 4,000, then we're going to come down lower. Obviously, we rejected at 4,000. We then started to come back down again. And for me, this was the key sign. When we actually put in the higher low, and then we actually had the bullish engulfing, that's when we could start to say, well, it looks like we're going into an uptrend. But even here, we were struggling to get above 4,000, and this easily could have, sort of tracked us and come off lower again. But I think sort of back here, we were, if you looked at the sort of macro picture, we'd kind of gone through sort of a Fed pivot just before Christmas time, where stock market started to come off very hard. And the Fed came out and said, look, it won't hike rates, and it will continue to sort of support the markets. And stocks have been going up very aggressively in sort of January time. And then we actually started to see crypto reverse. I think it got to the point where there were no real sellers left in the market at that point. And even though everybody seemed to be calling for lower prices, we just never seemed to get there. So, and I'll just see if we can see this sort of on a daily. Is that going to work? No, I don't think it is. Okay, so let's go back to where we are then, and if we just kind of sort of have a look, I mean, yeah, it's not looking very bottom like, and it's kind of hard to see where the bullish news and the positive news is actually going to come from. But like I say, when everybody is looking a certain direction, when everybody starts to look lower, then a lot of the times the markets can sort of turn around and go higher. And I kind of think to myself, look, like they were kind of testing the market here. The market came down. Obviously, we wanted to see if some selling volume would kind of pick up and step into the market, and it just hasn't. And for me, this was a little bit of this was the retest of that low. We didn't see the selling volume come in, which sort of tells me that sellers are maybe potentially a bit exhausted, and now we've actually looked to pull back up. And it remains to be seen if we can get sort of above this 17k level, sort of 17.5k, then we might have a shot at getting up to 19.5. And I think if we close this month above this 19.5 level, then it will be looking a lot more likely that this was our bear market low. But obviously right now it's premature to call that with us being so close to it. And of course, you know, at any point the dollar could catch a bid again and we could start to roll over, stocks could start to roll over, and Bitcoin could easily come off more. So I'm hesitant to call the low being in, but I'm just saying if you look at sort of any metric in terms of the 4-year cycle, or in terms of comparing, you know, the sort of drawdown, any sort of risk metric over sort of the last couple of bear markets and this bear market, everything has now fully reset. So we can say that in terms of, you know, our sort of checklist in terms of indicators and technicals, that everything's kind of been checked off. And yeah, it really remains to be seen whether Bitcoin can turn around here. But as far as sort of the media is going, it went from, you know, countries adopting Bitcoin and companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets, all talk of an ETF getting approved. All of this was coming out last year, and of course, you're not hearing about any of that now. It's all about regulation. It's all about contagion from the FTX collapse, more companies in trouble. And it's just, for me, it's just peak FUD. We saw peak hype and euphoria at the end of 2021 when Bitcoin ran up to 69,000. And we're seeing peak FUD, we're seeing peak panic and negativity coming out to the space right now that we're at the end of 2022. And yeah, it just feels like, it feels like we are very, very close to the bottom, both timing-wise, sentiment-wise, and price-wise. So, like I say, I'm hesitant to say the low is in, but I think there is there's a fairly high probability chance. And at the moment, I think it's a coin toss. There's a 50-50. We could roll over. We might start to sort of climb our way out of this. And you know, I'm not saying the recovery will be instant. I do actually think we're going to see some sort of sideways, probably into next year, into maybe February next year. But it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen where we go from here. And you know, I do think we are close to the low, and I do think that accumulation around these levels is, you know, not the worst idea. But what do I know? It's not financial advice. I'm just sharing my thoughts on where I think this market's going from here. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is an altcoin that I do actually hold. And, you know, I don't want to say I'm bullish on it, but a lot of people are very, very negative on Litecoin. Comes in for a lot of criticism. And you know, I totally get it. It's a replica of Bitcoin. It's you know, it's in a lot of people's eyes, it's an imitation. And you know, Bitcoin is the one true cryptocurrency, and it can't be displaced. And you know, I totally get that. But I think if you actually look at the properties of Litecoin and you say to yourself, well, this is a cryptocurrency that is largely also decentralized on a proof of work mechanism, and you know, there's no real central point of ownership. You know, it's probably not in the cryptocurrency that's not going to be in the crosshairs of the SEC around regulation. You know, ethically, it seems to tick a lot of boxes. So I think Litecoin has every chance of being around for the long term. I'm not going to say it's going to outperform other cryptocurrencies over that time. And certainly I think over time, we will see Litecoin trend down against Bitcoin. However, with the Litecoin halving coming up next year, I do think it's probably a fairly nice time to look at Litecoin. And for somebody like myself, it's a token I have been positioning into and will continue to do so as it nears closer to its halving. So if we actually look last year, back in 2019, we actually had its halving, I believe it was in July. And if we just kind of look at where we bottomed, we pretty much, I want to make sure I get the exact bottom here. Yeah, we pretty much bottomed from here up to, yeah, so about 27 bars from where the high of the run up was. It did it in 27 weeks. But I think at the time of halving, it actually pulled back slightly from memory. So, and 29 bars. So we're talking like 29, 30 bars out. Now we know its halving is, I've got here the 17th of July. I think it's actually been pushed out to about August. But if we actually let's just take the end of July and sort of go back to our 30 bars, you can see we're kind of getting to like the start of January. So really the end of this year, like the start of next year, is when potentially we could expect to see a halving pump. Now, of course, if everybody's expecting the price to start to pump right at the start of next year, then potentially this halving pump does start to get front run. And it's quite interesting looking at this and kind of saying to ourselves, well, you know, if this is the halvening, sort of pre-halvening pump, it's actually happening like a good couple of months prior to when we'd actually expect it to. And does that also mean that Bitcoin halvening might actually get front run earlier than it did last time around? So could we expect to see like a sort of pre-halvening pump happen in 2023 instead of 2024? So yeah, Litecoin definitely led the way out of the last bear market. I mean, if we actually look at when Litecoin broke out, we can probably sort of call it breaking out sort of in February, and then it started to go on a really crazy run. I mean, a massive move in April. But if we look at Bitcoin, obviously back in sort of January, February, we were very much going sideways, and it really started to pick up sort of towards the, well, sort of end of March, April time. So yeah, to me, it does feel like Litecoin could actually be signaling that the worst of the crypto bear market is over. I mean, historically, I have noticed Litecoin does tend to front run Bitcoin's moves, so it could be quite a interesting forward indicator if you want to use it that way. But it's something to keep our eye on, and certainly if Litecoin continues to show strength and starts to sort of run up to its 200-week moving average, which is around about $100, and if it can actually break that, then we could expect to see potentially Bitcoin turn around a lot sooner as well. And obviously, we're coming under some resistance here. So this is actually going to be the 50-week. So Litecoin is above its 20-week, and it's about to challenge its 50-week. And if we just look at Bitcoin in comparison, we kind of say Bitcoin is still under its 20-week, well under its 50-week. So Litecoin does seem to be doing some interesting things here. And yeah, I pretty much put this marker on here end of November, when I thought Litecoin would actually potentially start its sort of pre-halvening pump. That was kind of like a bit of a reminder to actually buy myself a bit more Litecoin, but it seems like this pre-halving pump could already be on its way. And I think there were also some comments that came out from Michael Saylor, sort of showing some, sort of giving some credit to Litecoin as well. So I don't know how much bearing that will have. But I do strongly believe that this pump is likely to be sort of halving related, with smart money starting to accumulate now, before sort of the hype from the retail sort of joins early next year and probably pushes the price a lot higher. So that was it really. Something to keep an eye on, and certainly I'll come up with further updates over the next few days and weeks with what's going on with the markets. But yeah, it's actually good to see some life in some of crypto, even if it's only Litecoin at the moment, with the rest of the market still struggling. We're also seeing, you just see here from these percentages, Sol getting a bit of a bounce today, sort of 13.5%, BNB as well, quite a strong move. So yeah, we're seeing some nice moves today, and really the question is, can that be sustained over the next few days and weeks? And really, for me personally, I'd like to see a strong close into the end of the month, especially on Bitcoin, and for Bitcoin to try and regain some of these key levels lost. Obviously, one step at a time, but I think this sort of 17.5K, obviously our low from back in the summer, if we can get above that and then sort of push above, sort of 18.5 and 19.5, then we would be looking fairly strong, and setting ourselves up for a pretty nice rally, I think, into year end, where we could potentially try and get ourselves up into the sort of shallow 20,000s. So and I do think that the market will shrug off this FTX news at some point. It seems like Grayscale have had their Bitcoin reserves verified by Coinbase, and Coinbase had come out with a statement on that. Obviously, Digital Currency Group, there's still question marks around whether they potentially have to raise 1 billion for them to kind of continue their operations. And I think DCG will be okay because they own so many different assets within the space. But it's just, if they do have to raise cash through asset sales, is how that might impact the market as well. So, there's certainly still risks out there, but I do think as we're sort of going through, we've kind of, hopefully, touch wood, we've seen the worst of this, and the market can now start to begin some recovery, or at least start to show some signs of strength. And I think we're already starting to see that some of this negative news is starting to have a lot less impact on the price than it did, say, sort of back when we had the Celsius news, and we saw a lot bigger moves to the downside. Certainly the move off the back of the FTX collapse is a lot less than what we saw when we had Celsius collapse. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching. Please do help support the channel. If you could share, like, subscribe, that'd be much appreciated. And I will see you soon.